Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Heartbreak Hotel by Erica Danielle, where we talk all things love, life, and relationships. Um, what I'm currently doing is a series on my first book, Married to the Backslider. People have asked several times, I love your book. I want your book. I don't like to read. Where can I listen to it? This is what I'm doing for you guys. I'm going to be reading each chapter at least once a week so that we can get through this book together. You guys can like, share, comment if you have questions or just commentary about the books. I will come back and I will answer all your commentary. So before we get started, like, share, comment. This book is available by Erica Danielle, Married to the Backslider, on Amazon. Also, when I recorded on the last time, it said the first chapter. It's not chapter one. We're currently still in the prologue. The prologue is written about also the main character, but the male character in the book. So this is his version of the story before my version begins. Okay, ready? So we're gonna jump back into where we left off. Dealing with the roots. While living with my parents again, I was back in my old room. I had nothing but time to think about how I had gotten here in my life. Why was I so hard-headed? The words of the guy we set on fire played over and over in my mind multiple times a day. He had put a curse on us. He had to. We had all been shot in the same place and received the same injury in unrelated shootings. The only explanation is that we had been cursed. I started thinking about all the wrongs I had made in my life and why. My mind drifted back to when I was 11 years old. I was in the living room and my mother and father were watching Hee Haw. My brother was on leave from the Air Force. He hated me, or at least that's how he acted. Since he had been in Vietnam, he had turned to drinking and drugs. This particular night, he came in and was arguing with my parents. That's when I heard him say, "Y'all treat him better than me, and he ain't even yours." My eyes got big in wonder of what did he mean? When my brother left in a rage, I walked into the living room. "Daddy, what is he talking about?" I asked, puzzled, looking at my father, trying to get an understanding. My father, who was 6'5", a big, strong stature, was a gentle giant and a man of few words. He waved his hand and said, "I'll tell you when you're ready." "But Daddy," I cried to him, "I'm yours." "What do he mean I'm not yours?" I kept asking. The next morning, my dad woke me up and we went for a drive. When we reached our destination, we sat in the driveway for what seemed like eternity. My daddy said in a slow, low voice, "Your real mama lives here. You got 3 sisters who live here too." I looked up at my dad in disbelief. I was going to argue that he wasn't true, but when out came running a girl about my age who surprisingly looked just like me. She flung open the car door and hugged me. Apparently, she knew all about me, but I knew nothing about her. Once we got in the house, I met Miss Martha, the woman who birthed me. She said my father was Curtis. Curtis was a ladies' man. He was married when he had an affair with my mother. In fact, he had plenty of affairs. In addition to the 10 kids he had with his wife, he had at least 10 more affairs that produced 10 more outside children. I was the youngest of his 20 and the youngest of my mother's 4. 20 kids, y'all. I was the youngest of 24 children in total. All my life, I had lived as an only child. I was confused. I wanted to ask her why she got rid of me, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I pretended as if I didn't care and listened at my sisters going on and on about how they loved me and how they knew that they would meet me one day. When I think about it, from that moment on, I never really felt like I belonged. I love my mama for taking care of me. Nothing had changed that. Eddie and Janet Silver were my parents, but I was mad at Martha and Curtis for being so irresponsible, for abandoning me. During my time thinking about my life, I got more and more angry. Angry at the thought of what would have happened if I had not been adopted or if I had never been found out. Angry about how my baby mama had left me and gave away my kids. If she would have stayed, I would have taken care of them even though they weren't mine. I was angry at the man who was sent to prison for shooting me and not being able to take his life. I was angry at the doctors who told me I would never walk again. The only thing that put me in good spirits was watching sermons on the computer next to my bed. Todd Hall was one of my favorites. One day, while listening to him, I got angry enough at myself that I decided I was going to walk. The doctors had given up on me and wouldn't provide physical therapy, but there was no reason for me not to try. I was good in my wheelchair and could move about freely. I even did good transferring from the chair to the other chair. If I could do that, I could stand up, is what I told myself. I will never forget the day I rode down the ramp of my parents' backyard to the front yard. College students had built a cement wall as a part of their class project around my parents' house because it was on a hill. At the top closest to the house, the wall was tall enough for me to stand up and lean on. When I got to the wall, I used my arms to pull up and rest on the cement. It was a struggle, but I made it. My mother ran to the front door and yelled at me, "Levy, what the hell you doing? Get down before you fall." "Mama, I got this," I yelled back. And I did. I stood on that wall for an hour. And each day I began to stand there a little longer until it became all day. When I went to the doctor for my regular visit, I mentioned to them that I wanted to walk. They still thought it was impossible, but nagging my doctor led them to refer me to an orthopedic doctor. It just so happens that the doctor that he went to was a classmate called Chris that he would have graduated with in high school. There they made casts out of my legs so that they could build special braces to help me stand. They had a more positive outlook and said that these braces could even help me walk. That was the only push I needed. I began to exercise my legs every day. My upper body was strong from lifting weights, rolling in my chair, and doing transfers. I was sure that I would be walking soon. I had a new goal. I had dated countless nurses and several other women. I had lived with 3 of them, but I knew it wasn't anything serious. I had to get my own place if I was going to be serious about taking care of myself. I was prescribed 30 milligrams of oxycodone 3 times per day for the pain. I sold the pills because I didn't like the way they made me feel, and they turned me a pretty good profit. One day I decided to try them because I had recently broken my leg, and amazingly, I could feel it, but it hurt something terrible. It was then that I began to abuse my pain medicine, and it ran out. And when it ran out, I tried heroin. My life was spiraling out of control. Prayers answered. After dodging some jail time, I prayed to God, "Please send me a wife. I want to settle down, to love, and have someone really love me. I wanted to feel complete and start a family to call my own, someone that wouldn't abandon me. I needed stability. I needed a reason to not do drugs anymore." I started visiting my neighborhood church to make sense of my life. I knew there was a calling on my life, not only because I had been told so, but because I had faced death 1,000 times and came out alive. I knew I had purpose. I just didn't know what it was. Then the summer came when I was introduced to her, the woman I had been praying for. I knew in that moment I saw her. I was used to flirting with every woman I saw, but it was something about her. It was like I had seen her before, like I knew she was coming, like I saw her in my dreams. She had agreed to meet me based on the possibility of volunteering at my after-school program. Since my kids had left, I needed something to do, and I had realized that I was really good with kids. They kept me happy, and in return, I kept them out of trouble. Well, actually, we kept each other out of trouble. Being their mentor didn't leave me with any time for criminal activities. And I was slowly slowing down with the ladies as well. It's a win-win situation. When she showed up at the planning meeting, all I knew about her was that she had done work with nonprofits, had been successful in fundraising, and had a degree in education. No one had mentioned how beautiful she was. I was in awe. During the meeting, I could barely concentrate on what everyone was saying because I was staring at her. I had gotten a lot of recognition as a former gangster who turned his life around to help the community and the youth not go down the same path. So community members, council members, and school board members were coming together to see what they could do to take the after-school program to the next level. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't even have a name for what they considered the after school program. It was just something to keep us out of trouble. I wanted to have a place where kids could feel like they belong, since that was something I felt was always important to me. I had no idea about how to run a legit program for kids, but she did. She was smart and feisty. She didn't mind saying how she felt and was confident when she spoke. She was so different from all the other women I knew. I liked her from the start, even if I thought she was a know-it-all. She was exactly what I pictured my wife would be. It was as if I had seen her before. When she showed up at my house on Monday afternoon, I was shocked to see her in jeans. She seemed very businesslike at the meeting. Even still, she walked in and began to place things in order. She even had the kids call her Miss. They all called me Lovey. She fit right in. She fit in so good, I told all the kids that day, she's going to be my wife. They all laughed in disbelief, not only because I didn't seem like the marrying type, but because I currently had a lady friend. We had just recently said we were going to get married because I wanted to settle down, and I figured God wasn't going to answer my prayer and send me the woman of my dreams. I was 35 and tired of living the life I was living. I hadn't bought her a ring or set a date, so I didn't think she thought I was serious. Besides, her kids didn't like me, and my mama didn't like her. I wasn't in love with her, so I knew it wouldn't work. When my wife came onto the scene, I knew instantly why I hadn't bought her a ring and that God had surely answered my prayers. When she pulled out of the driveway the first day, I signaled to her and asked if she was married. No, she said. Oh, that's all I need to know, I said to her as I smiled and rubbed my hands together. What is that supposed to mean? She laughed out loud. You're going to be my wife. I don't care if you have a boyfriend. You might as well tell him goodbye. My face was serious. You don't even know my last name, she said to me. I replied, your last name is my last name, Eva Silver. Yeah, I like the sound of that. And she drove off laughing. Every day she came over, I was excited. Things were going so good, except she wasn't falling for me like she should. It had been 3 months, and she hadn't even invited me to her house. And she had declined every invitation when I asked her out. I told her how much I liked her. I brought out all the charm, and she seemed unmoved. I got rid of my lady friend altogether, and she still told me no when I would ask her out. She was really playing hard to get. It had never been this hard to get close to a woman before. I usually have to beat them off of me, but I think it made me like her even more. She was tough. She didn't cater to me like everyone else. She would say to me when I would ask her to do something, "Can't you do it yourself? What would you do if I wasn't here?" I would shake my head and laugh. Then finally, when she was sure that I was serious, she started to linger around a little more after the kids went home. We would talk for hours about nothing and everything. In December, she finally invited me over to her house, a whole 6 months after we first met. She had the nerve to tell me I couldn't bring my wheelchair. Could you walk with your walker, she said. Yes, I said to her. Then bring it. You can't roll those wheels on my floor. She was mean, I said to her. But what I knew was that she just really was challenging me to be my best and told the truth. And to truth be told, I would have done anything to get inside of her house. That's the type of encouragement I needed. I needed someone strong who believed in me, and she was it. When I got to the other side of town, I came in through the kitchen and into the den. I was shocked to see that little Miss Smarty Pants didn't have it all together. It looked as if she was living out of boxes, and there were clothes everywhere. When I asked her about it, she said she had only moved in 2 months ago and was having trouble downsizing. She traveled all the time for work and hadn't had time to settle in. On top of that, her dryer had broken and she had to dry her clothes by laying them out. I just smiled and at the thought of knowing there was something wrong with her. Up until that point, I thought she was perfect. And come to find out, Superwoman wasn't super at everything. It didn't matter because I was prepared to be her Superman, and I loved her, Eva, flaws and all. The end. That's all for today, guys. Make sure that you tune in to get the rest of the book, Married to the Backslider.